Esta organización es el guardián regional en defensa de la democracia, la libertad y los derechos humanos. Los países se han comprometido con estos valores a través de instrumentos legales como la Carta Democrática Interamericana, la Convención Americana de Derechos Humanos y todas las demás convenciones interamericanas. Nuestro trabajo es mantener los más altos estándares. Debemos ser objetivos, analizar los hechos, denunciar cuando veamos corrupción, inequidad o amenazas a la libertad. En esos casos no podemos ser neutrales.
More than 100 years since the inauguration of this building, the OAS headquarters, our institution still brings together the peoples of the Americas to address our responsibilities as a partnership of nations. As we look to the future, our work must also focus on the construction of a positive agenda that continues to favorably impact millions of lives every day.
The COVID-19 pandemic brought unprecedented challenges to all member states and the people we serve. In response, the OAS Secretariat for Integral Development adopted a three-pronged approach by 1. Adjusting our portfolio of existing projects, 2. Exploring new projects to meet emerging needs, and 3. Expanding multi-sectoral partnerships. The results achieved in 2020 demonstrate the resilience of our member states and the commitment of the OAS SETI to work with member states and partners towards our common goals in the development of our region. Our Network on Competitiveness launched the COVID-19 Ideas Accelerator, sharing 250 tools, health solutions, responses, and recovery plans. The Network for Labor Administration published a portfolio of responses from ministries of labor to COVID-19, sharing over 420 measures taken to protect workers, employment, and income. Likewise, the Inter-American Teacher Education Network series, Teaching STEM in Quarantine, provided 117,000 teachers with key tools to continue advancing STEM education during the pandemic. Through its network and platforms, the Inter-American Committee on Ports promoted international and national best practices, guidelines, protocols, and recommendations on COVID-19 safety measures and continuity of logistic operations. Initiatives such as the Education in Times of Change platform allowed us to meet urgent needs by offering timely tools on virtual education and a dedicated space for ministries to share strategies, actions, and solutions. Other programs such as the Row Fund stepped up, providing emergency grants to offset the challenges imposed on our students by the pandemic. SETI's partnerships are adding value to member states in the form of technical assistance, training, and access to tools and services. In partnership with leading private sector institutions, we offered micro, small, and medium enterprises access to online tools and training, increasing their visibility and participation in e-commerce, a key to their survival and growth in the pandemic and post-pandemic era. A new OAS SETI Facebook initiative provided 85,000 MSMEs across the region with capacity building opportunities and WhatsApp business tools to aid response, recovery, and resilience building. The Caribbean Small Business Development Centers program achieved real impact, supporting new businesses, expanding sales, and driving growth. A new network of Caribbean SPDCs will broaden the program's reach. The Inter-American Committee on Tourism, the C2, convened ministerial-level policy dialogue in an urgent response to the impact of the pandemic on the hard-hit tourism and hospitality sectors. Policymakers and experts discussed biosanitary protocols, travel and visa facilitation, among other critical areas for the sector's recovery. Partnering with the George Washington University and the U.S. Bureau of Indian Affairs, we went ahead with the scheduled first Indigenous Tourism Forum of the Americas, pivoting to a virtual format and convening over 240 participants from indigenous communities, the private sector, and governments. SETI also integrated sustainable development practices in the COVID-19 response. The pandemic is a daily reminder of the links between water, health, sanitation, food security, and nutrition. We ensured the continuity of our water management projects in the Plata Basin and worked with governments and partners in the design of an investment portfolio valued at $90 million. Additionally, the Energy and Climate Partnership of the Americas continued to share relevant best practices and responses to the pandemic on energy and air quality. These few examples indicate our collective impact. We cannot do this alone. It is now more urgent than ever to address the region's structural weaknesses, to recover from the health, economic, and social crises occasioned by the pandemic and prepare for future shocks. It is imperative that we work together as we risk losing recent development gains and seeing millions fall back into poverty. It is time for the region to redirect course and pursue a more sustainable, resilient, and equitable future for all. We are in this together.
But the resilience building agenda is too big for any one stakeholder to address acting alone, and simply bringing together stakeholders, whether at the national, subnational, regional, or global level, is not enough. Effective, focused, and sustained coordination among stakeholders is paramount to provide countries with integrated and comprehensive support.
The OAS, as a hemispheric forum and honest broker, must continue to facilitate this process while we work with member states towards the attainment of the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. Cooperation, collaboration, and partnerships that include all actors strengthen us, enabling us to be more than the sum of our parts. We can and we must work together. The future of our region depends on it.
Me and my kids have been there for over an year right now. And children are friends. It doesn't matter where they come from.
So can we proceed?
Yes, President, we have quorum.
Thank you. Good afternoon, colleagues. The time is 1:34, and we will be resuming this afternoon's session. As we begin the session, the continuation of our third plenary session, I would like to welcome the Vice Minister of Ecuador, the Vice Minister of Education in Ecuador, Ms. Cynthia Game, who will be sharing with us exchanges and thoughts on the return to in-person education that aims to encourage a safe and open exchange on successful experiences or challenges associated with current strategies for the return to in-person education in schools in the countries of the region. Ms. Game, if you are here, I would now invite you to take the floor for your presentation.
Viceministra, si puede solicitar la palabra.
Ask the floor, please.
President, we have the Vice Minister connected. We are only waiting for her to request the floor.
Hello?
She did request the floor, sorry. It's taken some time for her to access the window.
Hello, are you hearing me?
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. Chair, sorry. Ms. Game requested the floor. The floor was given. Oh, we lost the chair, Director.
Sí, esperemos unos minutos a que lo...
Let us wait a few minutes for her to reconnect. Vice Minister Gaines was given the floor, but she hasn't connected yet.
Señor director, se volvió a dar la palabra al Ecuador, pero ahí está el presidente.
Ecuador has given the floor again, but still nothing happened.
Just now, sorry, I'm back. Please accept my apologies. Is the Vice Minister of Ecuador, the Vice Minister of Education of Ecuador online?
She's connecting, President.
Okay, so we'll just give her a minute or two.
Yes.
While she connects.
Ministro, están revisando la conexión de la viceministra.
Checking the connection because she doesn't appear on the screen. So it seems that we have given her the floor, but we cannot see her, and the technical team is getting in touch with her to see what's wrong.
If we're having some difficulties with Vice Minister Gain, is it possible that we could go to the next presentation by Deputy Director Molina? Is Deputy Director on the call in the meeting?
Déjeme lo verifico. Let me verify that because she was... Just give us a second.
Mr. Chair, Deputy Director Molina is requesting the floor.
Thank you. I'd like to begin by thanking Deputy Director Molina for accommodating us at this point in time. We know it was not your scheduled time to speak, but the fact that you have been so accommodating, I believe I can be a little bit accommodating to you as it relates to time as well, should you need a few extra minutes. I'll turn the floor over to you, Deputy Director.
Doctora Molina, su micrófono y su cámara. Gracias. Micrófono.
Vale, muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. I extend a kind greeting, and we are going to share the presentation once again, and they were going to share from the ministry my presentation now. First of all, I want to tell you that we are going to share with all of you basically, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Dr. Molina. We are waiting for you to request the floor. Once she is on the screen, she will be able to share the presentation. Because, you know, in all these present meetings, time is gold. So I am going to show you the presentation that we are going to share with all of you. What was the space, virtual space of dialogue and exchange of experiences that we had in the ordinary meeting from the 22nd and 29th of July this year. That was an extremely pleasant opportunity for us as a country, and it was an extremely interesting experience and exercise. We insist that we shared our experience and our understanding based on this Ministry of Education that we have, and our interest in the quality, and our ministry from Colombia. We interested in the quality and the conditions for the development of human development of all the children and adolescents and all of those that have, and the ones that have disabilities, and of the placement and any other type of characteristics in their lives. Our strong strengths and spaces for the development and to protect the children and all of them, and the children of both genders. This means that we started from the acknowledgement of the diversity that exists in our territory, and the acknowledgement, obviously, that there are different types and rhythms of learning and understanding of the education.
Debemos plantearnos
quality of education. We talk about of all the territory that covers all these particularities, and this is reflects that it is very flexible, it is timely, it is dynamic, and that it talks about understanding and of following, and that it takes into account all the matters that cover the needs of our children. As I was telling you, this was an interchange and a fabulous dialogue that we presented jointly with the OAS and the agenda, the structure of our agenda. And this is one of the things that we consider that is extremely important, and to repeat that it is a task that was cooperative and the joint task and effort, and the importance that we had of sharing and jointly learn with all the other countries of the region. What we basically agreed to have work on equity that can be developed, aspects that were very important for all the countries. And we therefore decided to work the first axis, and that we have the norms on developing in our country. The second axis are the tools that we developed for support the education and including and the connectivity for all the students, and then to share the experiences and giving the opportunity to all the children. It is important to insist in the diversity that we have in Colombia at the ethnic, cultural, and geographical, and obviously to respond to the different conditions that exist in our country. When we started with the first stage of our work throughout the different regions, we had a first session. And then the first thing that we did was to share how we are understanding that Colombia and the education on the basis and preparing and sharing with the other countries how we are establishing the education, not only to talking about the children and the adults and the adolescents, but the system that we are going to implement, but all of those and their singularities. When we talk about their education and diversity, we talk about students as well as of people, and that can be included in a situation of responsibility on the students that can in migrant students that can have some difficulties or of behavior or of poverty, or we can talk about an education that can be inclusive for them. And in this respect, during the first stage, we shared with the ministry as with the different type of countries as well as equity, and we considered to make something specific in the rural sector, and with these observations that we made to make the gradual return and safe return of all our students to the educational system. At the first stage and the second stage was as an interchange with all the countries, and Peru, we could exchange, and Mexico, and to study the expectations and all the matters related of the situations that exist in all these countries. And finally, we decided with all the conclusions that we arrived, how we could follow on these steps. In the second sessions, the 29th of July onwards, we decided that in a pluralistic manner, because we decided with the OAS and CIDE and the other countries with which we had been working. What we did then in a second meeting was to share the experiences on equity. And the first stage from Colombia, we shared 4 experiences that were covered in these conceptions on equity, equality, and regarding the attention on regarding the capacities, capacity building, and the experience regarding the educational attention given in the rural section, and the children that also had some and we managed to in a very conclusive manner cover and scheme in order to conclude all the experiences that would allow us to make a successful interchange and exchange. And it was fabulous, really, because we were able to make a systematic manner of this exchange, and that we covered partnership among the countries. From there onwards, we had a second meeting and we covered and exchanged the results at the municipal levels, and we obviously managed to arrive to final decisions of how we could cover jointly with the OAS some final decisions following. Then, as I told you, as a final decision of this with the interchange of experiences and the task carried out with the cooperation with the member countries, we prepared here and we managed to support the consolidation of this fabulous document that covered a virtual dialogue of all the experiences that shows in a very general manner what we you cannot obviously read because the letter is too small, but it is like a literature with the OAS and the CIE, which is a summary of all the report of what we manage, of which were the results that we obtained with the experiences, which are the differential matters and the tools that were what are the conclusions and which are the pact that we are going to follow. And they are very interesting, and all the terms of to continue as countries, to continue contributing in order to give all the children of the region and adolescents so that we may follow the development and can cover all these results, and we may obviously obtain and improve the conditions so that each one of them may have a better results, and that might construct a better capacity and they may obtain better results. Here it is obviously a challenge, and we continue progressing, and we are going to have spaces of work, and we are certainly going to continue sharing, and we are going to continue working. Another topic that is extremely important when we are talking about quality and continuity, and we are reviewing also if we can also continue other aspects on the styles of healthy life, and you can see that we are going to progress and we are going to continue sharing experiences and in a general way creating more spaces that we might share. I want to say here that we is a slide that we want to share, that we managed to do a joint work of cooperation and technical practical results, and it is possible that the countries manage to share and to enrich our experiences, and we manage to overcome our challenges and arrive to positive results for our countries, and something that is very important to continue working in this space that is for the work that we have done in each one of our countries to plate the attention and the care and the stamps of all the actions that we give for the children and the development for them in This is the presentation that we prepared from Colombia jointly with all the countries in the region, and I hope that it is sufficiently clear for all of you and the important impact that this has for the work that all the countries that have shared these experiences, and that it can always also be an important important in the framework that we have used. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Deputy Director. I know we had a few technical issues, but notwithstanding, your presentation has been well received. And I would like to now open the floor for any intervention that any delegate would like to have. I'm currently not seeing any requests for the floor. If there are none, I'd like to once again thank you, Deputy Director, and ask that if Vice Minister...
Minister,
yes.
Mexico is requesting the floor.
Oh, thank you. Mexico, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for giving us the floor. I am a member of the Mexican delegation. I would take the floor just for a very brief intervention after hearing the presentation of Colombia. First of all, I want to thank Colombia for the presentation of their experience in this activity. Mexico participated in this dialogue, and it was extremely enriching. Mexico participated through the superior, and it was very important, and it participated and knows very well the experience of all the other countries. In these two ideas, I want to share with you very briefly what we found through the inclusive experience and the connectivity, and to express our interest to continue with the strengthening of the countries. The Secretariat of the Public Education for the populations in conditions that leave their education system vulnerable, and the practice and the opportunities of the social conditions and the dialogue, and so that the Mexican states wants to change this and to ensure the permanent access to the education to all peoples. Under these conditions, the Secretariat created a system, the implementation that has as the objective to proactively change the system in an instructive manner, pertinent, responsive, that will identify and cover all the participation, and that will presented in all the, and to favor the access all the time, and the participation and conclusion of the children, adolescents and youngsters in all the country, and the diversity in the same conditions and opportunities, with the public educations as well as specific conditions and work.
We have a technical
Yes,
problem.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
And her image froze, so it could be connectivity.
Yeah. Okay. In the interim, while we try to have that resolved, do we have any other delegation that wishes to make a contribution to the discussion? I am currently not seeing any hands raised. And so if not, I would like to thank Deputy Director Molina for your presentation. Very informative, very well received. Thank you very much, Deputy Director. And if we can now revert to our previous speaker, Vice Minister Game from Ecuador. Is she on the call? Yes, there you are. Vice Minister, I turn the floor over to you. Thank you, Deputy Director.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon to everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, greetings from the Galapagos Islands, where I'm learning about the application of the contextualized curriculum to this wonderful territory, which is so beautiful. In my presentation, I'm gonna review the actions implemented by the Ministry of Education of Ecuador since March of 2020 that it has been implementing it to date, and how these actions have brought us to our present situation days before we're going to go back to in-person classes. Thank you for the introduction. Please help me with put up the slide presentation at this time. Thank you very much. Educational continuity in pandemic. Ecuador declared on March 11, 2020, the health emergency. Students attended their classes the last day on Thursday, March 12th. That was the last day they went to class, and then the national authorities promote digital platforms from that point on for education. The ministry put together the COVID-19 education plan and implemented phase 1. Let's learn at home. Aprendemos juntos en casa. The goal of which was for the students to continue with their learning activities from their respective homes. Next slide. Phase 1, let's learn together at home. Aprendemos juntos en casa. Issued guidelines with regard to prioritize curriculum and several didactic focuses using active methodologies in which the teachers have to work together to apply educational resources, along with pedagogic and psycho-emotional support, as well as you see on this slide. There was digital literacy programs were implemented. The students, even families, to solidify distance learning were given this training. In difficult areas for internet access, we had programs and used different media and platforms. For example, radio, television, printed material distribution. We use a telephone platform, cell phone platform. So as you can see on the slide, students had available to them a lot of different forms of support in their learning. Audiovisual support, digital support, support of their teachers, and a repository of digital resources as well. On the next slide, we see that these resources, these audiovisual and digital resources, helped strengthen a lot education because they were free of charge and open to all. So we saw how they could be shared freely and provided free access to these materials. Everything was readily accessible and enabled everyone to use and reuse, change, and create new education materials. Educativo is the name from 30 to 90 minutes a day. is what the instruction time on radio, television, and digital means were used. The repository of educational resources, which is on the right side of this slide, was enabled on the ministry's webpage. It continues to be where we load all the documents, books, guidebooks, instructions, guidelines, to be downloaded and to be viewed by students, teachers, and families alike. Among different types of content we've seen, we can see protocols and guidelines to confront the socio-emotional consequences of the pandemic, and even grievance management for students and family. And the next slide, phase 2, we learn together, we take care of each other. We see this second phase. It's a voluntary and progressive approach. Under all proper rules, we try to continue with education and progressively use school facilities more and more. So little by little, our children went back and adolescents went back to school after a year of lockdown. So we created safety protocols for this. The PICES, PICEs as they are known, is the institutional plan of educational continuity, which has two major components to it. The first one is to be able to distribute semi-in-person learning used under different strategies as a requirement for the institution to offer in-person or semi-in-person mode of learning. These activities were prioritized to lead to all in-person, but taking into account biosafety. And so a diagnostic assessment was made of the students once, and they're using an app called System of Monitoring and Follow-up, PICE, of the Ministry of Education. What were the results of these institutional plans, these PICEs, as they're known? So we've seen that this instrument allowed the national education system to begin return to in-person learning and to achieve overall results as of October 11, 8,268 plans, PICE plans were approved. That's 50.7% of the education institutions nationally had implemented these plans, a PICE plan, and returned to in-person. That's more than 708,000 plus students, and some 4,000 plus teachers were back to school as of November 11th, 2021. So we can see a detailed report here of one of these PICE plans, institutional plans. We can see records of COVID infections, etc. We see reported 33 students and 7 teachers became infected. So this means that there was not major infection within each facility, education, besides the use of masks, social distancing, hand hygiene, and isolation were properly followed, these guidelines, and that's what led to these figures. These figures you see, once again, on a weekly basis, they're monitored from the decentralized points of oversight. In the next slide, we see a supplementary or parallel strategies for progressive return to in-person. There are 2 complementary strategies we followed. re-encounter point and is one. And so the results of these reunification points, these were safe spaces that brought in children and adolescents to take part in a national census on physical, mental health, and their progress in their education. And August 10th of this year is when this was carried out. Until October 10th, they were conducted. In 2081,000 plus national points nationwide were set up. 281,199 students actually went and took part in these meeting points to undergo this assessment. So we also created a plan called Learn on Time. This national plan is an affirmative action plan designed specifically for students who have had poor performance, academic performance. These low levels of learning were focused on language, literature, and mathematics. As a result of the pandemic, they got worse. So this plan has an ongoing, permanent process of prioritize and focus curriculum in different areas of communication, mathematics, and individual help by a tutor. These actions helps to bring the students safely back to in-person learning and bring them up to speed. The return to in-person learning, thanks to the successful national vaccination plan, this week we achieved government approval for a return that is safe and responsible. This path that we have underwent, beginning with distance learning through different means, such as semi in-person, alternating in-person and remote. This week we see that there's been wonderful experience gained as showed what the best practices are and innovation and what gaps are, in addition to the need to re-enable institutions that were impacted negatively by the pandemic. We established a timeline for safe return to in-person classes. Next slide, please, which begins on November 22nd. The students return to the technical baccalaureate, both in rural areas as well in the island area of Galapagos, where I'm located at the present time. Vaccinated students nationwide. In the next slide, please. Luis, the next slide, please. Oh, that was it. So I don't have it. Sorry. Go back a few, please. No, just leave it there. Thank you. Vaccinated students nationwide. Before this shared responsibility strategy came into effect, it was announced that on November 22nd, as I said, this coming Monday, we're going to begin in-person return of all technical baccalaureate, BT, and rural baccalaureates and the baccalaureate programs on the Galapagos Islands. Also, as of December 6th, it's been announced that we're going to have a return to in-person class of 100% of all science and basic higher baccalaureate programs. This is part of the vaccination plan. And on January 17th, we are to have 100% in-person of of elementary education and baccalaureate nationwide. This shared responsibility concept that I just cited, the education institutions in the post-pandemic era have different concerns. They have to feel this shared responsibility along with civil society. And so we launched Apadrina, or sponsor a school, apadrina una escuela. So this is for the sake of vaccinating all kids nationwide. We go back to the idea of vaccinating. We have young people who are 5 to 11 years old. Only 32% of this age group have been vaccinated with a first dose. Young people from 12 to 17 in school, there's 73.29%, while those who have had one dose, those who have had a second dose of that age group are 33%. That means that to achieve the minimum intended by the Ministry of Health in each canton, we're looking to keep to the schedule that I showed before. In the next slide, when we talk about shared responsibility, I want to begin this with this phrase: from a draft to an idea. There's many different needs of kids in school. With a spirit of shared responsibility with civil society, we launched this strategy to sponsor a school, to reactivate and improve and boost the quality of schools in Ecuador. Additionally, today we begin the National League Education League, where families, the community, students are turning to the authorities of education institutions to enter into basic arrangements like networks coordinating for cleaning the actual school buildings where all our young people will be returning to. To wrap up this idea, I want to underscore that the declaration of emergency in Ecuador brought about new pedagogical strategies to aid education in this context, a change in methodologies, different portfolios, self-evaluation, and a concept of evaluation beyond just regular tests and quizzes. So in this scenario, the role of teachers who are committed to their jobs has been fundamental. We have to recognize them. It's imperative that the government and society do so. So we are working on new teaching approaches to make curriculum more flexible and reflect the lessons and experience learned during the pandemic. We maintain the commitment to continue adopting educational technologies, and with the efforts of digital literacy for the entire society, the community, all together to move towards a digital society. We've experienced a lot over these last 2 years. However, we have shown resiliency and particularly a commitment to education and to upholding the right to education. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vice Minister. Despite the delay in us, it was definitely worth the wait. So thank you very much for that very interesting and insightful presentation. Do we have any delegations that wish to request the floor for comment? I'm not seeing any delegations at the moment. Once again, are there any delegations that wish to request the floor? Yes, I'm seeing the delegate from Colombia, I believe it is.
Correct.
Colombia, you have the floor.
Thank you very much once again. The truth is, I insist on participating because it's very important to continue to hold meetings such as this one. The Ecuador's presentation was wonderful, not only because it was so concrete, but it's a real inspiration. It shows what this whole country's been doing so that children and young people can get back to school. We fully share this view in Colombia, and we are engaged in similar efforts as well. And we've had significant achievements as well in that our students are now, almost 96% of our students at government education institutions are returning to in-person class. So when they say we're near 60% return, I think they're on the way. And there's nothing wasted of all their efforts. Everything is helping. We do this in Colombia too. So let's have the children, have a children-centered, kid-centered approach, and let's uphold their right to quality education and show our commitment to this, because this is quite inspiring to hear what Ecuador has done. It makes us feel that we're doing the same thing and that we're doing the right thing, and we agree with and doing what the World Bank says that should be done, that children and adolescents have had quite a bit, have been impacted in their development, their socio-emotional development, particularly as a result of the lockdowns and other effects of the pandemic. So all of us as countries, we must continue to work on the basis that our students must get back to school and continue to experience what in-person learning is like and everything it contributes to ensuring quality education. Thank you.
Thank you. I see Argentina. Argentina, you have the floor.
Thank you. We're grateful for the figures, the strategies that have been shared by Colombia and Ecuador, and we join in to this effort that prompts us and drives us so that all children can get back to school in person. On October 1st in Argentina, we called for full in-person learning at all levels of education. With the university, has hybrid though, but included in-person for practicum and for internships. The Ministry of Education raised the need with the 24 jurisdictions of our country to recover lost time, get back lost time, and so we implemented on Saturday school, and we were working to set into motion summer schools where, in addition to learning language and math, we will include as well sports, art classes, well, those two subjects. Now, as regard to the time that it takes to recover that lost time, we've come up with infrastructure improvements and further equipping to put a million computers will be made available for secondary schools over the next time, textbooks for elementary school for kids, and literature for kindergarten and for first grade. So with regard to the infrastructure, as Ecuador says, and Colombia as well, in preparing these school houses to receive welcome kids back. There will be more class hours and a greater commitment of our governments with regard to the the investment and the budget required so that all children can get back to in-person classes. So I'd like to tell you about a program that we're conducting in Argentina, our country. We have 1 million scholarships, tuition payments for 18 to 24-year-old students who are finishing up their compulsory education or are engaged in higher education. We have included this monthly scholarship payment that 1 million kids, extra connectivity so that they can continue to study. This scholarship was in effect during the entire pandemic. We will announce over the next days reinforcements and expansion of the program. We highly appreciate this meeting here, and I find it necessary that we continue to exchange strategies, see what works over the next months, which beyond all the strategies and everything, what each country does, we have to confront together a pandemic that we consider is not over yet. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Argentina. And I would love to commend you on those scholarships that you're offering, because access to education is paramount, and financial resources, or the lack of financial resources, ought not to be a barrier to those persons who have the ability and the desire to access educational institutions. So congratulations on that very exciting and positive initiative. Do we have any more delegations, any other delegations seeking the floor? I see none. And so, if just in wrapping up this particular part of our meeting today, I thought really that this was the most interesting part of the discussion so far today, particularly the two topics that we discussed after lunch. The thoughts on return to in-person education, an excellent presentation delivered by Ecuador, and also inclusive and equitable education by Colombia. Those two topics, I think, were very timely, and I believe that the delegates here in this meeting learned quite a bit. I certainly did. I found them tremendously interesting. So thank you to the two delegations that presented, and also thank you, Argentina, for that very wonderful intervention that you just made. It's well appreciated. We will now continue, if I could just bring my notes together. The next segment of our third plenary session, we'll continue with a panel to discuss towards building a hemispheric proposal with a multi-sectoral approach. And to that end, we are pleased to have with us today the contributions from representatives of the labor and health sectors. It is my pleasure to welcome Mrs. Marcela Galliano, coordinator of the Healthy Ways, Conditions, and Lifestyles Group of the Ministry of Health and Social Protection of Colombia, in the representation of the chair of the Directing Council of the Pan American Health Organization, PAHO, 2021. Colombia was president of the PAHO's Directing Council during the last year, the period in which took place the 3 intersectoral dialogues. In the coming months, we will continue to work with the Ministry of Health and Wellness of Jamaica, which replaced Colombia in this important role. Ms. Galliano,
Chair,
you have the floor. Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Chair, I apologize to interrupt. It seems that we don't have the Spanish interpretation. Could you give us a minute, please?
Sure. Sí.
Sí, la escuché en español. La escucho. Gracias. Gracias. Mr. Chair, I was listening to the Spanish audio and I could hear well now. So please continue.
Okay. So I will once again reintroduce our first presenter, Mrs. Marcela Galliano, who is the coordinator of the Healthy Ways, Conditions, and Lifestyles Group of the Ministry of Health and Social Protection of Colombia, in the representation of the chair of the Directing Council of the Pan American Health Organization 2021. Colombia was president of the PAHO's Directing Council during the last year, the period in which took place the 3 intersectoral dialogues. In the coming months, we will continue our work with the Ministry of Health and Wellness of Jamaica, who will replace Colombia in this important role. And so, Mrs. Galliano, welcome, and the floor is over to you.
Su micrófono, por favor.
Good afternoon to all of you. For Colombia and for me, it is an enormous pleasure to be here with you. I am going to share my screen with you. You have to open it on your computer and you cannot manage it. Yes, perfect. Now please put it in presentation mode. Can you see it properly? Yes, but please put it in presentation mode. I have it in presentation mode. Okay, once again, good afternoon. And I said previously, I'm Marcela Galliano. I'm a psychiatrist. I am specialized in public health management, psychiatry, and I have of non-transmissible diseases. And we work with conditions, special conditions and chronic non-transmissible diseases. What we are working as a ministry, and we are strongly working in strategies that are working in CRS. So this strategy has allowed us to work jointly with other sectors in order to promote health. In this slide, I am going to show you what this strategy allows us to do. This is a tool that allows us to use these health determinants, and we can use to avoid transmissible diseases, to prevent tobacco consumption, the consumption of alcohol, and different type of factors, and we think of strategies that may harm populations. And we started preparing strategies that will allow us to have use vectors that will allow us to stop and act on, not to promote not only on health, but different type of vectors and this incidence of factors to promote change and an improvement on the quality of life of the people. So it is a tool that is extremely important to implement. In accordance with this strategy, we use as the highest proposal, and that the territories think that it is not only the health problem, and that we have the management of resources, and that the resources that exist in the territory are not sufficient, and both in our work area, and that jointly you can take with a different type of health, education, work, sports, culture, so that you can go in towards the same type of results. The objectives, the policies, participative policies, in order to that jointly with social policies we can use without the participation of all the communities or all the actors, and strengthen our means. What do we look for to achieve with this strategy? We want to prevent the use of tobacco, because it is not enough to just prevent or apply high taxes. We have some measures of population and transformations. All of us have to work, all the different sectors have to work jointly in order to diminish the use of these factors. Today we are working with these strategies and the implementation. We understand that there are 5 different tools: the democratic, the economic part, social, environmental, and financial. We take all these matters to implement how they can be used in the population, in the territories, in real time, in planning articulated manners for the health matters in every single one of the territories. As a country, how do we implement this strategy? What we try to implement to visible results in the development plan throughout the territory in health matters, as well as the different type of departments. Another type of progress is to establish dialogue with the health plans. We not only talk with our different type of secretariats, but also with the mayors, governors, and other chiefs of different type of secretariats to make joint plans. What we are trying to achieve with this type of strategy in order to different type of territorial interventions to implement joint plans. In the intersectorial planning, we have a different type of models, and we have already noticed that when you have different type of plans and it is joint plans, it is much easier to have a common means, and you can have these actions to the same populations, the strengthening of skills, and in these territories jointly with universities, schools, we have been able to manage, for example, a territory or universities with strategies. What we were able to do is in universities we have managed to have a course that have taught the students and train them on different players that were key players in teaching the students of a different type of preventive measures. A few teams or measures for these populations, and we have developed certain schemes where he made capacity building programs and technical schools and programs to the promotion of healthy programs, physical programs, prevention of tobacco use and other type of non-transmissible disease. All this has helped this at the national level.
Técnicas del Ministerio de Educación Nacional y asimismo con la Unidad Administrativa Especial de Alimentación Escolar. Con ellos llegamos a 25 entidades territoriales a nivel nacional, donde están acá el listado de los departamentos a los cuales podemos llegar con esta asistencia técnica para que ellos en los territorios puedan trabajar articuladamente salud y educación para el fomento de estrategias de estilos de vida saludable. Asimismo, pudimos trabajar con la misma línea de educación en una estrategia de estilos de vida saludable, donde también participó UNICEF, donde se crearon unas estrategias para el fomento de la alimentación saludable, la actividad física y prácticas de aseo, higiene personal. En el año 2019 y 2020,
Mr. Chair, I think there's a connectivity issue with Dr. Galeano.
Do we have a technical problem?
I believe so. It sounds like it's connectivity because first her video froze and then her audio went out.
Yes, the technical bugs are eating us after lunch. Let me just wait a few more seconds to see if she's able to get back online. If not, we may need to go to our next speaker and then revert to Ms. Galliano. I think, yes. Can you confirm whether our next speaker is in the room? Mrs. Edith Bike. Is she in the meeting?
Consultamos si la señora Vic puede pedir la palabra. Ya la está solicitando, ministro.
Okay. Colleagues, under the circumstances, as we were just discussing, the technical issues have been plaguing us this afternoon, but in the interest of expedience, I would like to invite Mrs. Edith Big, the National Director of Continuous Training of the Ministry of Labor, Employment and Social Security of Argentina, in the representation of the Chair of the Inter-American Conference of Ministers of Labor. Director, thank you for accommodating us in such short notice. It is much appreciated, and the floor is yours.
¿Estoy con audio? Sí. Bueno, buenas tardes. Estimados presidentes, señor ministro Darryl Matthew, representantes y autoridades de la Comisión Interamericana de Educación. Es un honor para el Ministerio de Trabajo, Empleo y Seguridad Social de Argentina, en ejercicio de la presidencia de la Conferencia Interamericana de Ministros de Trabajo, poder formar parte de este fructífero espacio de diálogo intersectorial. Celebramos esta mayor y necesaria articulación entre educación, trabajo y salud y agradecemos profundamente la invitación. Como afirmó usted, ministro Matthew, en la cuarta sesión plenaria de la 21ª Conferencia Interamericana de Ministros de Trabajo, la pandemia de COVID-19 nos ha enfrentado a graves desafíos sociales, económicos, laborales, educativos y sanitarios que exigen una articulación y cooperación multisectorial regional más intensa y sólida. Llevamos recorrido un camino de coordinación entre educación y trabajo a nivel regional dentro de la OEA desde 2013 y que se ha venido consolidando en las sucesivas conferencias de ministros de trabajo y de educación. De estos resultaron el taller intersectorial Empleo Juvenil, articulación entre educación y trabajo, y el taller RIAL, las habilidades del futuro, contribuciones desde los ministerios de educación y de trabajo, realizados en Brasilia en diciembre de 2016 y en Santiago de Chile en mayo de 2019, respectivamente, con la participación conjunta de funcionarios y funcionarias de nuestros ministerios. En aquellas oportunidades pudimos compartir y analizar experiencias de política, debatir sobre los principales retos de la coordinación intersectorial, identificar lecciones aprendidas y plantear recomendaciones de política y acciones para fortalecer la articulación entre los ministerios de Trabajo y de Educación. Sin embargo, la actual coyuntura social, económica, laboral, sanitaria y educativa nos demanda nuevos compromisos. Es por ello que en la Declaración y Plan de Acción de Buenos Aires, los ministros de Trabajo de las Américas se comprometieron a continuar fortaleciendo la interacción y articulación entre el mundo del trabajo, la educación y la formación para el trabajo, mediante políticas públicas activas que promuevan la coordinación entre nuestros sistemas de formación profesional y de educación formal, enfatizando en la formación técnica y profesional para el trabajo. Asimismo, reafirmaron su voluntad de desarrollar marcos nacionales y regionales de cualificación y alentaron a OIT, Interfor, OEA y UNESCO a que continúen trabajando en pos de este objetivo. Cabe destacar que a través de la Red Interamericana para la Administración Laboral, que es nuestro mecanismo de cooperación entre ministerios de trabajo, se financió conjuntamente con OIT, Interfor y UNESCO un curso regional en la materia y seguiremos trabajando para lograr un marco regional de cualificaciones para las Américas. También asumieron avanzar en el desarrollo de estrategias que faciliten la transición escuela-trabajo y brinden oportunidades de educación y capacitación técnica y vocacional para los jóvenes y las jóvenes, en especial para aquellos y aquellas que se encuentran en situaciones de mayor vulnerabilidad en razón de diversas interseccionalidades, como es el caso de las mujeres jóvenes, los y las jóvenes con discapacidad, migrantes, indígenas y aquellos y aquellas que involuntariamente no estudian ni trabajan. Como es evidente, el trabajo colaborativo entre Ministerios de Trabajo y Educación resulta fundamental para alcanzar la Agenda 2030 para el Desarrollo Sostenible y para alcanzar los Objetivos de Desarrollo Sostenible 4 y 8. En el marco del diálogo entre ministros y ministras de Trabajo y Educación, el Plan de Acción de Buenos Aires 2021, construyendo un mundo del trabajo más resiliente, con desarrollo sostenible, trabajo decente, empleo productivo e inclusión social, así como en el taller intersectorial de 2016, se consideraron los profundos cambios sociales, tecnológicos y laborales y su incidencia sobre los sistemas de educación, la formación profesional, la calidad del empleo y la inclusión. Se planteó así el desafío que esto implica a todas las instituciones del mundo del trabajo en cuanto a generar una mayor articulación de las políticas educativas y de empleo, especialmente la formación profesional, que permita a las trabajadoras y a los trabajadores hacer frente a esta transformación del mundo del trabajo. En dicho marco se señaló la importancia de considerar los siguientes temas que quisiéramos proponer concretamente como áreas para continuar nuestra colaboración intersectorial. El aprendizaje continuo a lo largo de la vida y la reconversión laboral y productiva. Las tendencias y metodologías para el desarrollo de las habilidades del futuro, técnicas y socioemocionales. El análisis de experiencias de trabajo conjunto y o coordinación entre nuestros ministerios, así como con otros actores públicos y privados en la identificación y desarrollo de habilidades del futuro. El desarrollo de un marco regional de cualificaciones para fortalecer las competencias y el desarrollo de las habilidades del futuro. Esto continuando el trabajo ya mencionado en alianza entre OEA, OIT Interfor y UNESCO. La gestión y generación de información que refleje y sea relevante para las distintas realidades nacionales en materia de educación y trabajo. El fortalecimiento, actualización y ampliación de los sistemas de certificación de competencias y los servicios de empleo. El fortalecimiento del diálogo social institucionalizado para lograr sociedades más justas, equitativas y resilientes. La prevención y erradicación del trabajo infantil, el establecimiento de trayectorias de formación y transición entre sectores productivos. En síntesis, es importante destacar los acuerdos entre los Ministerios de Educación y de Trabajo en nuestra región que, en el marco del diálogo social de actores, desarrollan acciones para garantizar la formación continua y a lo largo de la vida. Por otra parte, es importante señalar también que el contexto de pandemia presentó un desafío inédito, pese a lo cual se logró mantener una oferta formativa pertinente para la calificación de las trabajadoras y de los trabajadores, con la profundización de algunas estrategias digitales en algunos casos y la implementación de una novedosa oferta a distancia en otros casos. De esta manera, también se planteó ampliar el alcance de las políticas a sectores de la población que no tenían acceso a instituciones de formación profesional para mantener la interacción con los sectores más vulnerables del mundo del trabajo en los distintos espacios territoriales de la región. Además, en esta interacción y dentro de la agenda regional señalada, se planteó fortalecer las acciones tendientes a permitir que los trabajadores y las trabajadoras puedan implementar estrategias para mejorar sus posibilidades de inserción en el mercado laboral formal, así como establecer cuáles son las posibilidades de reconversión de las habilidades y competencias que poseen. No quisiera dejar de mencionar que también son mandatos de la 21ª Conferencia Interamericana de Ministros de Trabajo el compromiso de continuar fortaleciendo la coordinación interinstitucional con los ministerios de salud, trabajar hacia la actualización de guías, protocolos y normativas referidos a la atención de emergencias sanitarias, el desarrollo de medidas para promover la salud mental en el lugar de trabajo, impulsar la salud y seguridad en el trabajo desde un enfoque preventivo, de acuerdo con los lineamientos de la Organización Mundial de la Salud, y desarrollar e implementar, con la contribución del diálogo social, estrategias que refuercen la salud y seguridad ocupacional. Para finalizar, me gustaría agradecer nuevamente a la Comisión Interamericana de Educación y a la Secretaría Técnica de la OEA por esta invitación y quisiera retomar aquella idea que el ministro de Trabajo argentina, Claudio Moroni, plasmara durante sus alocuciones en la Conferencia Interamericana de Ministros de Trabajo acerca de la necesidad de tender puentes entre las políticas laborales y las políticas educativas y sanitarias. Para alcanzar el desarrollo sostenible, la justicia social, la equidad y la inclusión, necesitamos un proceso de desarrollo centrado en las personas que involucre transformaciones socioeconómicas, políticas y culturales. Las problemáticas del desarrollo que atraviesan en nuestra región comprometen las dimensiones educativa y laboral. Por ello, el diálogo intersectorial articulado y coordinado, el trabajo colaborativo entre nuestros ministerios de Trabajo y de Educación, más aún en este contexto de crisis, no puede ser una opción. El momento nos exige nuestros mayores compromisos. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Director Vic. I believe we are all very grateful for your presentation and your participation, and your presence here is a clear demonstration of the intersectoral relationship that exists between ministries of labor, education, and of course, health. Is Ms. Galliano, was she able to rejoin the meeting?
I know, Mr. President, that she has been trying, but I don't have her in the list. They are telling me that she's connected. Ms. Galeano, ¿pudiera solicitar la palabra?
I'm not seeing Ms. Galliano making the request.
No.
I think you're muted.
Sorry, President. I believe that we can proceed with the dialogue among the Ministries of Education and the Ministry of Labor that it is here represented.
Absolutely. Colleagues, the floor is open for any intervention, any comments that you'd like to make as we wind down today's sessions. I believe we had some very interesting presentations, particularly the last presentation from Director Bick. Is there any delegation who would like the floor at this point in time? I see Ms. Galliano has requested the floor. So I would like to, at this point in time, give her the opportunity to complete her presentation. So Ms. Galliano, if you're with us, welcome back, and the floor is yours to continue your presentation.
Señora Galliano, ¿prefiere que yo pase la presentación? Porque su imagen se congeló.
Sí,
y estaba en la lámina 5, ¿no?
No sé en qué momento me
Yo
quedé
se la
sin
muestro ahora,
conexión.
se la muestro.
Muchísimas gracias. Y es que estoy en el ministerio y acá nos tenemos muchas restricciones por seguridad, entonces nos sacan, disculpen, pero si me regalan donde estaba, yo vuelvo a empezar. Quedé en esta diapositiva, quedé, ¿sí? Quedé en esta diapositiva, perdón.
I think that was the last slide I saw.
Bueno, ok, entonces estamos trabajando en diferentes procesos de articulación intersectorial. Uno de ellos es con el Ministerio de Educación y la UNICEF, donde se creó una herramienta que en la diapositiva pueden encontrar el link, donde se hizo un proceso de transformación en entornos escolares saludables y para fortalecer las capacidades de la comunidad educativa. En esta estrategia logramos llegar a 8 territorios que están aquí: Chocó, La Guajira, San Andrés, Guaviare, Santander, Risaralda, Valle del Cauca y Cundinamarca, a 24 instituciones educativas. Este ejercicio es liderado acá en Colombia por el Ministerio de Educación y nosotros como Ministerio de Salud trabajamos en esta caja de herramientas para que los procesos de alimentación saludable, actividad física y prácticas de higiene quedaran acorde con los lineamientos que se trabajan a nivel nacional como salud. El siguiente, por favor. Desde la promoción de la actividad física a nivel territorial, desde la estrategia CERS que les nombraba anteriormente, hemos trabajado en un modelo de gestión intersectorial territorial. A nivel nacional estamos articulados, pero nuestra mayor importancia es que a nivel territorial se logren articular para la promoción de la salud en general, pero en el tema de promoción de la actividad física a través de la herramienta HIT, que es liderada por la OMS. Esta herramienta evalúa la parte como económica de la salud para que los desplazamientos a pie y en bicicleta. Estos desplazamientos buscan que la gente fomente un poco más la actividad física, por consiguiente son herramientas y hay estrategias para que la gente camine más y su desplazamiento a los diferentes sitios, trabajo, estudios, sea en bicicleta o que se bajen antes de su sitio para poder caminar un poco eso. Entonces son diferentes estrategias que lo mezclan con la parte económica para ver esta incidencia en salud. ¿Me están escuchando?
Sí, muy bien.
Ya. Ok.
Yes.
Es que acá me dijo que el internet. Thank you. Otras de los procesos que tenemos para actividad física son en el marco de una atención individual, o sea, en las rutas integrales de atención como tal en nuestro sector, con una herramienta, con un documento, hemos logrado que el talento humano en salud tenga unos tics y unos mensajes de consejería para la promoción de la actividad física y que en los diferentes espacios de atenciones individuales en los servicios de salud se pueda hacer esta promoción y se haga la incidencia y la importancia de que hagan actividad física en todo el curso de vida, desde los más pequeños hasta los adultos mayores, para poder utilizarlo como medio de evitar enfermedades y optimizar la calidad de vida de las personas. Asimismo, hemos hecho diferentes cursos virtuales que están para la comunidad. Esto lo hemos trabajado a nivel nacional con diferentes procesos de articulación, Ministerio de Educación, Presidencia, donde lo que hemos logrado es que se hagan cursos de fomento de estilos de vida saludable, que en algunos han sido con un enfoque poblacional de jóvenes entre 11 y 17 años, por ejemplo. Y como país estamos en un proceso muy articulado con el Ministerio del Deporte, donde estamos haciendo capacitación a gestores territoriales, que son las personas que en diferentes entornos, tanto educativo como comunitario, que llegan a las personas de diferentes edades, también no solo les lleguen con esa una hora o media hora que hagan actividad física, sino que además en este proceso también se den otros mensajes de promoción de estilos de promoción de estilos de vida saludable, como son la alimentación saludable, la prevención del consumo y de alcohol. Siguiente, por favor. Nuestros principales logros en la estrategia Ciudades, Entornos y Ruralidades Saludables es que nuestro país está dividido en 32 departamentos y 5 distritos. De estos departamentos y distritos, el 81% de estos departamentos ya reconocen la estrategia. Han estado en diferentes espacios de sensibilización de la estrategia y el 75% de ellos presentan algún grado de implementación, sea que están replicando o que quieren conocer más sobre la estrategia. Actualmente en Colombia existen 1.128 municipios, de los cuales de estos 1.100 algo, 309 municipios han sido sensibilizados en la estrategia. Y de estos hemos logrado la firma de 36 acuerdos, que es uno de esos instrumentos que estamos utilizando como en la estrategia para que haya mayor compromiso de los entes territoriales. Entonces, estos compromisos son firmados por los gobernadores o los alcaldes para ser parte de que su municipio, su ciudad sea saludable. Y el 60% de las entidades comprometidas presentan algún grado de avance en la implementación de la estrategia. Siguiente, por favor. Actualmente, como ministerio, hemos generado una herramienta que se puede ver en el link que está abajo en esta diapositiva, donde estamos condensando indicadores, diferentes avances y situaciones de cada uno de los municipios de acá de Colombia, para que en tiempo real ellos puedan ver cómo están. Si pueden tener, les voy a compartir la presentación para que puedan darle clic a esta herramienta y ahí ustedes obviamente puedan tener una guía de cómo estamos haciendo el ejercicio de seguimiento a los territorios. Pero esta herramienta también no la estamos pensando no solo para que nosotros conozcamos, sino para que los gobernadores y alcaldes en tiempo real puedan evidenciar cómo están sus territorios en diferentes indicadores, no solo en salud, sino, por ejemplo, en ausentismo laboral, ausentismo escolar, cómo está el tema de agua potable, de aire, de vacunación. O sea, hemos intentado en esta herramienta todavía estamos alimentando la herramienta para que están diferentes indicadores, porque no solo un municipio es saludable porque están todos vacunados, sino porque además cuentan con agua potable o con vías parques para poder hacer actividad física. Entonces, esta herramienta sigue en proceso de construcción. Cada día evidenciamos indicadores de los cuales podemos obtener datos en tiempo real que estamos alimentando esta herramienta. Siguiente, por favor. Para finalizar, en los territorios nosotros hacemos mucho hincapié para que sean un municipio saludable o una ciudad saludable, un entorno saludable, que hagan un análisis de situación de salud y que conozcan sus prioridades. Es importante que cada uno de estos territorios tengan la realidad de cómo están en cada uno de sus diferentes sectores. Entonces, esta es como la primera hincapié que se le da a los territorios para que ellos puedan hacer esa priorización de lo que necesitan acorde con su situación, no solo en salud, sino también en social y en general en todos los factores. También que hagan una definición de los sectores claves que tienen que estar para poder hacer como viable la estrategia. Entonces nosotros sacábamos unos ejemplos. Acá debería estar deporte, cultura, infraestructura, agricultura, y generar alianzas con los recursos de cada uno de estos sectores. O sea, no es de pronto tener un recurso de más para la estrategia, sino con los recursos de cada uno de estos sectores poder llegar a un objetivo en conjunto. Vincular sus prioridades a todas las herramientas de planeación. Acá en Colombia tenemos diferentes herramientas de planeación a nivel territorial. Entonces lo que buscamos es que esto quede plasmado en estas herramientas de planeación, porque esto va de la mano con el recurso. Si no está en las herramientas de planeación, pues no tiene plata, entonces pues es muy difícil hacer las diferentes acciones para poder llegar al objetivo. Asimismo, monitorear y hacer seguimiento a lo que dejen en planeación, porque muchos sectores o algunas ciudades o municipios lo que hacen es hacer diferentes acciones, pero después no tienen unos resultados porque no hacen un monitoreo y seguimiento. Entonces, la herramienta que les mostré anteriormente, también les estamos dando como esa capacitación a los territorios para que decirles, hay diferentes herramientas que les puede permitir a ustedes mirar cómo están y poder hacer un seguimiento acorde con lo que van haciendo. Y como les decía anteriormente, esto sin la participación social no funciona. Las políticas, estrategias y herramientas que se hacen se tienen que hacer con la comunidad. No llegar a ellos como si nosotros tuviéramos como la verdad absoluta. En comunidades, acá en Colombia contamos con muchas comunidades indígenas, afrodescendientes, y para nosotros es importante poder contar con ellos en las diferentes estrategias y planeación que se haga. Quiero nombrarles algunas de las estrategias que nosotros les decimos a los territorios que tengan en cuenta para poder empezar a desarrollar los procesos. Una de ellas son reencuentros sociales a partir de la actividad cultural y deportiva, reactivación económica y laboral, retorno a las aulas desde la primera infancia, reconstrucción del tejido social, estrategias de comunicación para el cuidado de la salud, infraestructura para la actividad física, promover el transporte activo, abastecimiento de alimentos saludables, tiendas escolares, mercados campesinos, implementación de la ruta de promoción y mantenimiento de salud, fortalecimiento de los servicios en salud con enfoque de APS. Nosotros acá en Colombia tenemos comunidades que están a días en canoas, que la intención no es que las comunidades lleguen a los diferentes servicios, sino que los servicios lleguen a las comunidades. Y esto se hace bajo una atención primaria. Entonces, estas son algunas de las herramientas que les decimos a los territorios que asuman, y algunos ya tienen estos ejercicios en un proceso de implementación alto, como los mostraba, como en los resultados que tenemos de la estrategia. Muchísimas gracias. Si tienen alguna pregunta, estoy presta a poder dar, si tengo la respuesta.
Thank you very much, Ms. Galliano. And We thank you for your resilience and your patience in overcoming the technical issues to deliver what is a very informative presentation. I open the floor to delegates who may wish to have an intervention. Do we have anyone wishing to comment on either of the two presentations that we heard this afternoon for our intersectoral colleagues from the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Labor? Do we have any delegate that wishes to comment? I see Peru seeking the floor. Peru, please proceed.
Bueno, yo tenía una consulta para la señora Galeano.
Se le escucha muy bajito, señora Yesken.
¿Ahora?
Muy bien.
Les decía que tenía una consulta para la señora Galeano y también hacer un comentario. Definitivamente, en la actualidad para los países de Latinoamérica ha sido muy complicado justamente ese trabajo intersectorial, ¿no? Y muchas veces es mucho más difícil aterrizarlo en un territorio, ¿no? Entonces creo que acá se ha puesto sobre la mesa un aspecto súper importante que es hacer intervenciones desde territorio, ¿no? Y con adecuaciones y participación de todos los miembros de este territorio, así sean unidades más pequeñas de implementación. La pregunta que yo tenía es que si esta iniciativa está acompañada por algún sistema de gestión de información o de interoperabilidad entre justamente el Ministerio de Salud o el de Educación, para que la municipalidad pueda también tener acceso o tener mayor trazabilidad de sus acciones en cada territorio. Gracias.
Thank you, Peru. Ms. Galeano, would you like to respond?
¿Me escuchan? Es que acá me dice que la conexión está mala. Ok. Pues estoy completamente de acuerdo con la compañera de Perú. Sin embargo, tenemos que reconocer que hemos podido tener un ejercicio de mayor facilidad en los procesos de articulación a nivel territorial que a nivel nacional. Porque a nivel territorial estamos llegando a la cabeza de gobierno. No estamos solo desde nuestro sector como tal que es salud, sino que en el territorio estamos diciéndole al alcalde, que es la cabeza de usted tiene que trabajar con todos y cada uno de sus diferentes sectores. Y así es que hemos logrado avances. Vuelvo y reitero, a nivel nacional ha sido un poco más difícil. Hemos tenido procesos de articulación, como les nombraba en la presentación, con algunos sectores como son educación, deporte, pero son acciones de pronto muy específicas. No hemos logrado poner esto en un documento, esto para poder llegar. Sin embargo, después del COVID, acá hicimos un documento para trabajar en los próximos 5 o 6 años, donde una de las líneas es el proceso de articulación y un plan de trabajo articulado, donde este tema, que son los estilos de vida saludable, tiene un rol muy importante. Entonces, creo que en este momento va a ser la oportunidad de poderlo hacer nacionalmente con este instrumento que lidera planeación de la nación, y esperamos, porque realmente articular no es tan fácil como decía la compañera de Perú. Sin embargo, esperamos que este instrumento nos dé esa herramienta para poder tener como articuladamente, porque es que a veces lo que hacemos es reunirnos, pero cada quien sigue trabajando por su lado. Entonces, esperamos que esta herramienta lo haga. Sin embargo, lo que les digo, lo que nos ha permitido en los territorios es llegar directamente a la cabeza, poder decirle a ese alcalde, tiene que trabajar articuladamente.
Thank you so much, Ms. Galeano. I see Colombia requesting the floor. Colombia, please proceed.
Muchísimas gracias, señor presidente. Solamente reforzar lo que ya ha presentado el Ministerio de Salud de Colombia frente a estas iniciativas, pero precisamente con la intervención de los colegas de Perú vemos la necesidad de que estos espacios de diálogo entre pares continúen dando frutos. Y que podamos mantener el trabajo articulado, enmarcado en estos procesos que durante 2020 y 2021 se dieron de la mano y el apoyo de la OPS con los espacios que el director nos mencionó en la primera sesión, en el que pudimos participar y precisamente como mencionaba nuestra colega del Ministerio de Salud, poder compartir desde los diferentes ministerios de educación estas iniciativas y todo lo que estamos haciendo. Entonces, simplemente un mensaje de que esto no se trata solamente de voluntad y recursos, sino también de método. Y eso es lo que la Comisión Interamericana de Educación ha permitido con estos espacios. Ha sido un actor articulador muy relevante para hacer el seguimiento a los mandatos, a los compromisos y a precisamente ese plan de trabajo muy oportuno y pertinente que diseñó conjuntamente con los países de los cuales fuimos partícipes para el 2019-2022. Entonces, simplemente reforzar la necesidad de poder continuar compartiendo estas experiencias y en ese sentido manifestar la importancia y la relevancia de esta temática y de otras subtemáticas que se desprenden del tema de estilos de vida saludable. Nosotros como Ministerio de Educación tenemos también un compromiso dentro del plan de trabajo de la Comisión Interamericana que queremos reforzarlo precisamente con uno de las experiencias que alcanzaron a mencionar en la intervención, que trabajamos conjuntamente con UNICEF sobre una caja de herramientas que puede ser muy interesante para los otros países. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Colombia. Do we have any other delegations seeking to make a contribution to today's discussion? I see none, and if that is the case, I would just like, sorry, yes?
Presidente, si me permite hacer un comentario. Antes que nada, a los ministerios de educación, a usted, pedirle una disculpa por todas estas fallas técnicas que están fuera del control de la Organización de los Estados Americanos. Pero sí quisiera rescatar lo que también tuvimos desde el área sectorial de trabajo, que creo que empata muy bien con lo que el gobierno de Colombia nos ha puesto en la mesa, tanto desde su Ministerio de Educación como su Ministerio de Salud, para poder seguir entrelazando estas estrategias, no solo a nivel nacional, sino a nivel hemisférico, que es nuestra aspiración. Quisiera rescatar nada más de la presentación que tuvimos del Ministerio de Trabajo de Argentina, que en la reunión de ministros de trabajo celebrada en septiembre pasado, donde usted nos representó, los ministros del trabajo tomaron la decisión de seguir colaborando con los ministerios de educación en temas muy puntuales, como mencionaron el aprendizaje continuo a lo largo de la vida y la reconversión laboral y productiva, la armonización de la oferta formativa y la demanda laboral, el mayor acceso a conectividad y asequibilidad en tecnologías digitales, el desarrollo de habilidades fundacionales y transferibles. Y quisiera comentar que hemos tomado nota como Secretaría Técnica de esos procesos y que los invitados especiales que nos están escuchando, he estado revisando la lista y que han estado pendientes también de de esta reunión, la solicitud que les hicimos a esos invitados que son aliados de la organización, aliados de los ministerios, es que vayan tomando nota de estas solicitudes para poder llegar como Secretaría Técnica y ofrecerles productos muy concretos, actividades muy concretas que puedan fortalecer todas estas solicitudes de ministerios de trabajo, ministerios de salud y ministerios de educación. Señor presidente, no quería dejar pasar eso por alto. Tuvimos que interrumpir una presentación, que entrara otra, entonces el diálogo no se logró como lo teníamos pensado, pero bueno, tomamos nota de todas los comentarios, tanto de ministerios de trabajo como de ministerios de salud, y seguiremos abordando los temas en esta Comisión Interamericana. Muchas gracias, señor presidente.
And thank you for that very useful comment and intervention. You know, my own feelings as it relates to intersectoral dialogue is they surround the principle that issues that affect us all cannot be solved individually. And so the more dialogue that we can have between correlated sectors, the better it is for us all. And so I'm quite pleased, I was quite happy to have had the opportunity to present at the Ministers of Labour meeting a few months ago. And I'm quite happy to have our friends and colleagues from the Ministries of Health and Labour join us in this discussion here today. Your intervention and your presentations were very insightful, very useful, and very timely. And so thank you once again. Colleagues, we have come to the end of today's agenda. I think we had a very interesting day, a very tightly run day. I'm happy that we all adhered to the timelines, but I do not believe that we lost any content by being on time. I believe all the presentations today were spot on. They were very insightful and useful and should give us a lot to reflect on as we prepare for tomorrow's continuation of this meeting. I propose, therefore, that the Inter-American Council for Integral Development take note of the presentations and the comments of our guests today and have them so recorded. And if there are no objections, it is so decided. Like I said, we have completed today's proceedings. Unless there are any very pressing comments that anyone would like to make, the proposal is that we close now and we adjourn tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Washington time. I see no hands up for commentary. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time today. Thank you for all of the work that you did today. And please have a good evening.
Thank you, Minister.
Señor director Cierro.
Sí, estaba esperando nada más al ministro. Luis, muchas gracias por el apoyo. Mañana nos vemos temprano. Le recuerdo a las misiones que todavía están conectadas que es un nuevo link el que usaremos el día de mañana. Les reitero la puntualidad. Se aprecia mucho. Tenemos que revisar quórum antes de poder iniciar la sesión. Y como vieron, nuestro ministro, nuestro presidente es muy puntual para iniciar las sesiones, entonces los espero a todos el día de mañana temprano, 9 de la mañana. Entiendo, Luis, Gloria, que va a estar abierto una hora antes para quien quiera realizar pruebas de conexión, poderlas hacer.
Le doy la palabra a Gloria, efectivamente, una hora antes, pero está entrando Gloria.
Sí, señor, una hora antes.
Perfecto, pues les agradezco a todos su apoyo y nos vemos mañana.
Con mucho gusto. Bueno, gracias. Muy amable, director. Cerramos sala, Luis, gracias.
Ok.